Can you understand me?
I just watched you do it on
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
He said yes. No, but does that mean that he actually can hear me, or is that
Today's,
he
GSM
said
Yes,
yes?
exclusively by
They
sign language.
they heard you like at the tail end of it, I'm pretty sure.
Oh, really?
Oh. Okay.
All right, let me know if the audio levels are good. As you can tell, this was set up last minute.
Very last minute.
Shut it all down. Reboot it. Take 2.
This is
This
how
never happened. Delete it off Twitch.
It's
fine.
we've
did
done
that
it
once.
before. Yeah, twice. Actually, that took us like 3 false starts, DJ.
What was that? That was
was
a Fresh Start
Fresh
Cup,
Start
right?
Cup.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We didn't actually go till the 3rd time we got through the intro.
Yeah. Anyway, welcome to GSM Live episode number. I'm gonna do it again. It was funny. We give up. We are back in Bleck, and that is because we have the wonderful Bleck from Ink TV joining us today. And we, as in GSM, my name is Melissa Acid Sunshine. I'm joined by Hitzel, which is above me on my screen, but I guess
Not
that
on my
way.
screen.
That way.
I mean, we're
that
used
way
to that. We play
to-
Splatoon. We're used to it being different on each other's
Yeah.
screens.
And DJ, who's I think under my screen. So thank you guys all for being here, and welcome to everyone who's hanging out. Yeah. So,
I'm sure all that placement was wrong on DJ's stream.
No, it's right.
No, it's right because
Okay.
I have the stream.
Oh, you actually?
open.
I just have chat.
Melissa's cheating.
I'm looking at it to make sure
Oh.
that
Give me credit where
Screen
credit's
looker.
due. Come on. I'm not that much of a screw up.
No, you're not a screw up at all. It's wonderful. It's wonderful. So, that being said, we have some really fun things to discuss today. Let's start with the most recent of events. Yesterday, the NA Winter Open ended, and we have some results. FT Win is going to Genesis. What are your thoughts? What are you guys thinking?
Genesis
I know.
is freaking stacked now.
Yeah,
It's going to be amazing.
I think it's like the most good teams we've had at a single LAN.
in a long time, or if
It's like there's like a top 8 now. You know? Like it's not just like fighting for top 2 or top 4 anymore.
Right. There's not necessarily a shoe-in.
Yeah.
It's strong contenders all around.
yeah, I think like when we were looking at seeding, there's like I think it's like actually like 8 or 9 teams that are all like, well, these should definitely go in top 8. You know what I mean? So it isn't just like, I mean, obviously like the top 4 teams are expected to be top 4, but there's a couple like In Control, Azure, Enlightenment, like the kind of like +1 pickup kind of thing that we have going on, and I think there was like one more where it's like these teams are actually all capable of making it there, and
So what's the final roster list as it stands now? Because it's been a hot minute since I last looked at it.
for Genesis or for the
For Genesis, yeah.
I think all the teams that
So-
are going except for a couple have like at least 1 sub, but
Yeah, of the top 4, literally the only team that wasn't registered was FT Win. So because they won the Open, they get to go, which is actually pretty sick. It also like it adds a lot more narrative to this like tournament than there could have been, because since the top 4 teams from the Open are the top 4 teams expected, at least for Genesis, it sets a lot of expectations. It makes like the seeding of the tournament, I guess, a lot more accurate, and I think it's going to add a lot more excitement than if we just kind of went into this blind and just had like a bunch of these like good teams and kind of like let them loose. The fact that we just had this online qualifier to kind of set expectations is going to make things like, how do I put it? Like, I guess like a lot more structured.
no
Yeah.
no DCs to blame on this one.
Yeah.
Well, not necessarily.
Unless Bliss can bring his
The
internet
doc-
over.
The Doc DC.
That's what I was thinking. I'm like,
Just put a leash on Arashi, we'll be fine.
I'm not bringing my dock, so we're all good.
Everyone's
But-
stocks need to have a little rubber band attachment to
Right?
hold those switches in place.
How
I don't
simple
think
of a
that will
thing
help.
would that be?
It,
You don't
it
think
would
so?
help a little bit.
Yeah.
You'd have to get some serious tension on there to really get some table.
Well, he'll be at the
action,
LAN, so
to
it's
hold
fine.
it.
It's going to be a lot of fun no matter what. And I think, speaking of roster, they have not announced the format, right?
No, they did.
Oh, they did. Okay.
I saw
I know
tweets about
more
it.
than you know, so I don't want to spill anything that I'm not supposed to know or you're not supposed to know.
From what I understood
So,
about it, it's similar to the G7 or not G7, the GSM lands we've done, where it's like there's a redemption bracket. You know, the first seed out of each group goes straight to the top 12, and then second and third fight for redemption. And I think it's just a single elim bracket there. And then their silver
Is that
bracket
the-
is like there's the Swiss thing that they did last year. So it's like,
mhm.
you know, it's not like a full bracket. It's just like 3 rounds of Swiss, and whoever does the best wins.
Is that the waterfall format, or am I visualizing this wrong?
It's not really a waterfall. It's just like it's a similar idea, but it's essentially like every group has I think 4 to 5 teams in it. And if you get first seed, you just go straight to top 12, and then the ones that are close, so second and third, they fight for the last, you know, 6 slots in top 12. So
It's kind of like how in fighting game tournaments, where like out of each pool, there's a winners. One team comes out winners, and one team comes out losers, and that kind of changes their trajectory. For
yeah,
day
it's
two.
it's exactly
Sort of like
how
that,
it's how we did Summer Split. I'm pretty sure. So I think it's just
Okay.
pretty much the same format as that
yeah, I
one.
think it's just a different number
Yeah.
of pools.
Yeah,
I think it's really similar to what SNS was too. So,
The most recent one, yeah, I think it's almost the
Yeah.
same as SNS. Yeah, no surprises. Oh, no, no, I forget what the rules were for like counter picks and stuff for the map list. Do we
they're doing
remember much
counter
of
picks
that?
in top 12, and what was it? I remember it. It's not something that I've seen before. It's like they pick the mode, and then the team that won, like the losing team picks the mode, and then the team that won bans 2 modes from or 2 maps from that
So they are
mode
doing
pool,
that. Gotcha.
and then the loser picks from the remaining. So it's kind of like a ban pick thing.
Mm-hmm.
So it'd be interesting to see how that plays out.
Yeah, I know a lot of
Yeah.
people have been kind of like looking to things like Smash and such to kind of inspire like new like pick and ban kind of systems. I think it's a little bit different in Splat because like the difference between what a map is and how much difference it brings to the table and how much like about like the game that you have to know to be able to play them all as compared to like a stage and Smash where it has a lot more to do with like individual character matchups and stuff where like you pick the map and then like the characters and like you kind of pick characters and all that kind of stuff. So it's a little bit different, but this will be a pretty good opportunity to see how it turns out, especially since we just talked about there actually being like a real like top 8 to the point where this kind of stuff is actually going to matter. And they're actually like basically almost all the top 8 is established teams with actual rosters. Like there's not that many pickups, so there's not like that excuse of like, well, it's a bunch of pickups fighting each other, so it's not really like the cleanest data. I think this land's going to show us a lot about how like the pick and ban kind of system actually can or can't work in Splat.
Yeah, the only thing that's like stopped me from like trying this out in like a GSM event was I was worried about time in this because like
yeah.
they're trying to do it in the same 60 seconds that, you know, our counter pick system usually does. So I'm just wondering how, you know, like a pick, then a ban, then a pick is going to go in that 60 seconds. I feel like they're going to realize that they're going to have to extend that.
They're going to have to run someone back and forth between the 2 stations, you know?
Yeah,
I
I mean,
think there's another plan in place that should make it work, but I think all of
Maybe.
it's
Walkie-talkies.
There's perhaps a
It's-
different strategy.
no.
everybody's got to download this iPhone app and hook up 3 cables. And if you don't have an iPhone, you just lose. You don't get a
You
counter
immediately
pick.
get disqualified. No, at the very least, in person.
I'd love to just
doing
do the
picks-
standard.
Doing picks and bans in person, I've always found to be a lot
Easier.
more efficient than online. There's just a certain presence when someone with a clipboard is standing over you asking you to pick 2 maps that you go, these 2. Whereas online, that pressure
that
is not
clipboard can be
there.
erupted.
Exactly. You
need-
never know what that TO is going to do with that clipboard. But online, there's a general sense of a bit more leisure to take your time for the full allotted time, which of course adds to things like delays and stuff down the road.
Yeah.
I'm withholding
So-
dropping team names. I'm just going to let that joke slide.
But I think it's going to be a lot of fun. Obviously, it's coming up very, very fast, and it's going to be, we're 2 weeks out? A little less, right?
Basically,
Week and a half, basically.
yeah. I mean,
Whew.
there's a weekend coming up, and then the next weekend is it. So
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So, being a part of the team for this, we're working on it as fast as we can.
It's crunch time.
It really is. It really is.
Mhm.
So, but I think it'll be a really fun event. And, I've never been to a Genesis, so I'm really excited to
Really?
go. Yeah.
Genesis is a pretty fun one. to
I'd
be
say
I've
honest.
been-
Genesis has the
Is
most
there- what else
unique
is at
atmosphere of any
Genesis?
LAN.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I think it's just Smash and Splat, and like one other
Yeah,
game.
Smash and
Aether-
Splash.
Rivals of Aether
Oh,
is there.
I think that they had Dragon Ball Z last year.
Yeah.
There's like some FGC stuff, but it's like
Mario Kart.
not
and
much bigger than
there's-
Splatoon. Yeah, it's like Splatoon's like probably the second biggest event there.
Yeah. DDR Extreme. You
Yeah, I
can-
remember the DDR
Well,
subs.
they're doing Melee and
Well, yeah,
Smash
Melee.
4, right?
I bundle those together in my mind.
Yeah.
So
Smash 64, Melee, and Ultimate. So
Mhm.
I think it's
yeah,
gonna
we
be
have
fun.
30 teams, which is 120 people.
It's the
don't really know
largest
how that
Splatoon
compares.
showing at a Genesis yet.
That's cool.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah,
cool.
so-
That sounds
I don't
great.
think it's by that much though. I want to say we had like 28 teams last year.
Yeah,
or
I think it was
something.
like it's like 2 more teams
Yeah.
or something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's not by a
Still
lot,
counts.
but
It
Yep.
still counts.
Yes, it
I-
does.
Yeah.
It still counts
still
considering
eight
that
more
it's
people.
That's Splatoon growing, even though it's the third year of Splatoon.
even
2.
though it's a dead game.
it's a
yeah.
dead game.
dead game.
Dead game.
It's
That being
necromancy
said,
in this dead game.
yeah. Well, all right. So let's move on to some other things that are going on. Oh wait, we talked about G7. We didn't talk about the NA Winter Open. See, this is
Oh,
list.
yeah.
Oh, we just kind of like
Yeah.
immediately went into
It
G7.
just
We
Yeah.
talked about
Yeah,
the
it's
winner
separate.
and then just like went straight to what they're
The
gonna do
NA,
next
the
week.
NA, it's
Yeah.
a dead tournament. It's over.
Yeah, it's in the
Yeah,
past. Why would
true.
we even talk about it? You know.
It's
Yeah.
a whole 24 hours ago.
So how much of it did you guys get to see?
I watched
I-
pretty much the whole thing. I
Zero.
kind of tuned out for like a
Yeah.
couple games here and there, but it was like some of the sets were like landslides, and then some were like still fast, but like
All
were
the
closer
scores-
than it would seem.
Yeah, I didn't get to see any of day one. I had a ton of stuff to do.
Yeah, I missed all
got
of
to
day
check-
one.
I
watched
checked
the
into the
last
half
stream
of it.
at the perfect time apparently because Deep Blues or Slaughterhouse, they were Prodigy's in chat. He's going to correct it as much as the story that I get wrong. But apparently they were fighting like some lower level team in Turf War, and they had someone in their lobby that wasn't on their roster, and they needed some guy named Bubblegum instead. So the guy that is on the roster leaves. And then like a couple minutes later, he rejoins the match, but the guy has the same level. He's like, 27 star, like everything's like
It's the
suspiciously
same.
So they check the recent players list, and then the person that was in there, like Tom or whatever, is gone, which means that he changed his name to Bubblegum and joined. And then they catch him doing this, and they start laughing about it. And then the real Bubblegum joins.
Oh my
So now
God.
there's 2 Bubblegums in the lobby, and these guys are just squealing. Like I'm checking out at Target, and I'm like, "What's going on with the tournament?" And everyone's just about Bubblegum. Oh, Ratman, that's what it was. Ratman became Bubblegum, and then Bubblegum become the third something. I don't know.
Oh my gosh.
I didn't catch
Only
that. I did
inside.
watch Power Stream for when they had that Game 5 set that they'd almost lost against. I don't even remember who the other team was, but I was surprised.
This is in Turf War?
Yeah, it was in Turf War, day 1.
Yeah, it was best of
Slaughterhouse.
5.
They went to Game 5, and I think they either reverse sweeped or they were down 2-1 for sure. And like they closed it out fine, but it was like, kind of sketchy.
Uh-oh. Well, speaking of such, I didn't
It's because
see the
Prodigy DC'd Game 1 according to
Oh,
them.
there was a lot of DCs apparently happening.
Yeah.
I didn't
Yeah.
see the Slaughterhouse versus Prophecy game. That's so weird. Like 2 weeks ago it was Deep Blues versus Low Key, and like now they like switch or whatever, but I didn't get to see that set.
That's what
day
happens when
one.
contracts come up.
Yeah. But
It's like
like it
all
was
the
a
teams signed at the
3-0.
same time last year, so like everybody's going back to their old name
Right,
at the
yeah.
same time.
Yeah.
I guess the beginning of the new year is like, oh, it's the fiscal new year, time to drop a bunch of teams and sign a bunch of new teams, and it's kind of I guess because 2 teams got sponsored and then 2 teams dropped their sponsors. But either way,
Yeah.
the set between those 2 was 3-0, which was like really surprising to me because I think a lot of people thought that Slaughterhouse was going to be the team to win that set. So like them losing isn't a surprise. There's the fact that it was a 3-0 was a surprise. But at the same time, like you were saying earlier, DJ, a lot of these, because there wasn't a single team that lost a set in top 8 of the Open that won more than one game. It was always 3-1 or 3-0.
Or 4-1.
But Or 4-1, yeah.
4-1.
But a lot of those sets, like they were really close games where like the lead just barely changed hands at the very last second. Like they weren't. There was a lot of like close 3-1s. You know what I mean? So I don't know if like that's what the Prophecy Slaughterhouse set was like. But it's really hard for me to believe that it was just like a really just landslide of a 3-0 between those two teams. I don't know if someone did. Any of you guys see the set?
I mean, I think Slaughterhouse has that start slow syndrome because, like, I mean, Slaughterhouse is really when they're good, it's because Power's like warmed up and on fire, and the rest of them are feeling how good like Power's playing.
I understand that,
that's when
yeah.
they're playing at their level, and I think like that might just be like a start of the day. They just weren't quite rolling.
They weren't just on yet. I mean, that's
Yeah.
not even necessarily a Power thing. That's kind of like an everybody thing. But
It's an everybody thing, but I feel like when I watch them, I feel like Power is the one that always starts the like the train's momentum going, because like he'll get like a triple or something, and then he'll carry a game, and then the rest of them start playing better.
And then Taylor's West Coast on top of it, so this is kind of early for him. And
But yeah, didn't it
can
start at like
see-
7 a.m. for him or something? Like, oh no, it was
Yeah,
like
it was
9.
9.
That's still pretty early considering he probably wakes up at like 3 his time.
Yeah, something like that.
All right, well, everybody start making the Reggie Gigas memes, I guess.
I mean,
Yeah,
it was
that's how I see them. They are Regigigas.
I have a picture. I have a relevant picture. I'll just place it in chat while Melissa gets the next topic ready.
All right. So yeah, congratulations to FT Win for your win. And I was mad because I watched all of day 2 except for the last like 2.5 minutes of the last game, which I think was what
the
everyone
highlight of the
said was
tournament.
the highlight. Yeah, the best game out of the whole thing. So I was really bummed that that's the part I missed live. But really excited to have them all on board for Genesis. And oh yeah, that's an image. So
I don't know if I
that
want to
being
click on this.
said, it's not. It's just
It's just an image.
yeah.
It's not necessarily good, not necessarily bad.
It's the character on the left is Slaughterhouse. The character on the right is the bracket.
So another online tournament that happens to be starting very soon is GSM Grand Prix number 3.
Yes.
So I'm really excited about this. It's going to be a lot of
Jazz
fun.
Wait, is that jazz hands or spirit fingers? I never can tell the
Spirit
difference.
fingers are like, you can't even see your fingers. Jazz hands are just slow, like.
Oh my god. You would know the difference too.
Yeah, I
What
would.
about,
I've seen that movie like 100 times.
What
There's
about
a movie
Spirit
based
Fingers
on
and
that?
Jazz Fingers?
Spirit fingers came from why can't I think of the name of it now? I'm failing. From a movie about
This is like
cheerleading.
Mean Girls or something.
Oh, that
Yeah.
that movie. Yeah, I know
Yeah.
what you're talking about.
Yeah. So
I'm not gonna say the name because I want to pretend that I'm not aware of what it's called.
I can't. My English has failed me all day long. I'm surprised I can even speak right now. So
So Jazz Hands is the hands and Spirit Fingers is the fingers.
Yes.
Okay. Bring it
What
on.
if you're doing
Thank
both
you.
at the same time where
Exactly.
it's just
As depicted by their names.
yeah.
Yeah. Superstar totally
He said that like it was some like big huge like realization. And it was just
oh,
hands
wow,
are hands.
those are the
Fingers are
descriptive names.
fingers.
Wow.
Oh man. Whew, okay. So we're all really excited for GSM Grand Prix 3, as you could see from our spirit fingers and our jazz hands that we've been showcasing today and now know the difference of. And it's going to be a little different than we've done things in the past.
Mhm.
So DJ
Okay.
was, championing this format, and I would love for you to discuss it.
Yeah, so GSM Grand Prix is kind of like my baby. And this time around I kind of wanted to create a way for
Does that mean it's a ginger?
No. Well, maybe. No, the colors aren't right for it.
It's a recessive trait. I got you.
Gotcha. Yeah.
Sorry, you were trying to.
Now
say
that I'm
something
completely derailed and don't remember where I was going with that.
serious. You're talking about
The
babies.
format.
This
the
is like when we
format-
commentate together. Like I'm like about to do a point and then you make some dumb joke and I can't talk anymore.
This is a pairing noted, never to put on anything. again.
Or do
Anyway,
it.
my goal for this one, and as such GSM's goal for this one, is to create a way for mid and lower level teams to have an incentive to play. Because the thing that we noticed is a lot of the top teams really, really love Grand Prix, but the mid tier teams and the low tier teams aren't always motivated to sign up. So the main goal with that is to, what we've done is create this like tier system. So everybody who plays in any of the qualifiers or gets top 16 in a tournament that is coordinated with us, which Bleck and InkTV's tournaments is some of those. Everybody gets points in the qualifiers, and if you've got points from a qualifier, you're gonna get into a finals bracket. So before it was just the top 8 people got into a finals bracket, everybody else just, we're done for the day.
Everyone else spirit fingers.
Yeah, so now you get into a tier. So the top 8 teams is the same as it was. It's the pro tier. It's the most like prestigious one. We're gonna have a special day of streaming that, but everybody else is gonna get streamed on the weekend before, where you have the next 8 down, which is we're gonna call X tier. We're going XS, all the way down for however many teams we end up with, and so everybody's got something.
We
to
have enough letters
win.
in the alphabet to cover it.
Yeah, everybody's got something that they can win. Like you might not be an A, like I'm not gonna get to pro tier, but I can win X rank. You know what I mean? And that was kind of the goal with this, is give everybody something to fight for. And then the other big change, people did like the old format, but we also saw a lot of people clamoring for, bring back double elim, or, keep tournaments basic. So I think something we wanted to do this time around is to make our qualifiers all double elim. So they're all double elim. All the seeding is going to be done by points, so there's no like confusion there. So if you're playing, you're seeding, and you just play through a normal double elim tournament, and then you end up with points at the end of the day. So hopefully that's kind of what people are hoping to see. And I don't think I missed anything else.
Yeah, I mean, I think this format's really nice, and this is something DJ and I had discussed when we talked about it, and I really appreciate you finding a way to make it more inclusive, because that Grand Prix started, like you said, it was, really for the like highest level teams, and that's kind of where things fed out to. But now I feel like anyone can participate and enter, and you can play with whoever you want and have a great time in it. And it's a good opportunity to play, because a lot of teams will get to Twitter drama, but a lot of teams have said that there aren't enough tournaments going on. There aren't enough things for us to compete in. Well, January is a stacked month. We've already had one huge tournament. We're having many more. We had SMC earlier in the month too. That was really groundbreaking for the amount of entrants. So I think this is the best time to be playing competitive Splatoon again. LAN season is ramping up. We have so many fun things happening. So it's going to be awesome.
Yeah, right, because Beacon's right around the corner and stuff as well.
Yeah, Beacon, super secret things that we can't talk about yet.
Yeah.
It's amazing how much of the stuff that we have planned we can't talk about versus what we have.
I know.
And,
yeah, go for it.
I was just going to say, and part of that as well, because having TOs for so long, you see certain trends, and one of the biggest trends that come through is there's a large team drop in early fall because everyone's going back to school. There's another large drop in tournaments that just so happens to coincide with the entire American holiday set. Usually we're starting around November, ending at the end of December, and then starting in January, things just flare up as if trying to make up for lost time. So a certain degree of expectation, at least from where I've sat and seen tournaments come and go, is that it's been a little dry.
Yeah, I think this
it's
is the
going
longest
to be
dry
very
spell that
soon.
we've had, actually. Just from like pure like majors perspective, like we had InkTV open in the summer and Grand Prix, but that's been it since then. So like end of July through now, we basically didn't really have anything but Crown.
Online.
Well,
Yeah,
our last
Crown.
open was in start of August.
So like a couple weeks
Yeah.
later, but still that's like 5 months without something major other than Crown, which Crown was great, but it also wasn't everybody. So
it was like an unorthodox thing. I mean,
Yeah.
we'll probably get back into talking about that as we dip into some of our other topics. But as far as like being like the like quote unquote like a normal major with like kind of like the standard competition, we've been without that for a while.
Yeah.
And so it's with on that from that perspective, it's really nice to see things like like GSM and a bunch of stuff coming out and making all these tournaments. And not that like all of them are going to be saying we'll get on this topic later, but the fact that things are kind of ramping back up is really
It's almost too much, actually.
good. Yeah.
Everyone just
Like
gets
a
so
big rebound.
excited after the holiday.
I mean, it's great. It's like, especially because, and this is me being very kind of conventional in my thinking, in the northern hemisphere it's winter. Nobody wants to go outside right now. What are you going to do? You're going to sit and play video games. And it's a
To be
great
fair,
time
when
to
we
do
can
that.
go outside, we kind of do that too.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. But I mean, here in New York, it was 68 yesterday and it went down to 20 last night. So I'm sitting cozy in my apartment right now.
There's a
it's
reason
a
I'm
great
wearing
time to
my
play.
awesome Beacon hoodie or a sweater.
We can't see.
Yeah, I have my Salmon Run one. If you open stream, that's all you can see.
Yeah, you don't have the stream open?
It's all the way over
His
here. I have
chat
chat
open.
open.
You know.
Chat's all that
So
matters.
yeah.
Yeah.
Did we touch on Battlefy? I saw that Future had
We are
mentioned
switching
that.
to Battlefy, yeah.
We're switching to Battlefy. So that's gonna be a shake. Yeah, there's the jazz hand.
Wait, I'll do
Yeah,
spirit fingers, you do jazz hands.
Like that first one, it wasn't spirit fingers or jazz hands. It was like some other genre of music elbows where you were just kind of like doing this.
Ecstatic elbows.
Yeah. Electric forearms or something. Whatever.
I also like just
Yeah.
want to throw in there, I'm a little bothered by how different the greens of mine and Bleck's green screens are, and it's been triggering me this whole time.
Now I need to open stream.
If they were a little further apart, I'd feel better about it. Or if they were a little closer together, I'd feel better about it. But
It's
because
just
they're
bothering
Oh
me.
yeah.
I get it. I got you.
Yeah.
I understand.
It's like
Um,
green versus like key lime.
Anyway, to go into why we switched to Battlefy, like we used Battlefy way back when we did the GSM Elite stuff, like a year and a half ago or whatever. We switched to Smash GG because we were doing our lands on Smash GG anyway, so we wanted to do everything on one platform. But Smash GG just like didn't have like some of the things that it does for signups has been a complaint that we've had since we started using it. It's not as big a deal for a LAN because everybody has to sign up on their own and pay for themselves. But when you're doing a team, like online team thing, it's just kind of frustrating for a lot of people. And, we just listened to that feedback and we decided, you know what, we're going to do Battlefy. We figured out how to do it all on one tournament page. So you only have to sign up once. And, that's kind of the thought process.
Yeah.
So if you
And
missed
what's
Smash
really
GG,
nice-
sorry.
No. Yeah. Well, I don't think a lot of people are gonna miss it, to be honest.
I think there's
really
like
like-
a few people
Surprise.
maybe.
Yeah, I mean, I really like working with it. I have yet to work with Battlefy on the TO side, so we'll see how things go this weekend. When we kick it off. But yeah, like what Future said, from the TO side, Smash GG had a lot of nice things to it. And there were a lot of things that I was like, man, if I could just get into this code and like ask for one thing to change, that would be beautiful. So it's going to be fun. But speaking of that, one of the cool things we have with GSM Grand Prix 3 is we have a plethora of other tournaments that points can count from, one of which is the fantastic thing that Ink TV is doing. Bleck, would
Jazz
you like
elbows.
to
So with that segue, yes. So I guess of similar mind of wanting to do something that's collaborative with other events going on at the same time. Also came up with the idea for the Splatoon World League. Premise of this being not so much the day-to-day points or tournaments that come in, that all plays a backseat to what's driving behind the scenes, which is our leaderboard. And that leaderboard is driven entirely based on the matches you play, with the people you play with against the people you play against. So every set that you have, every game that you play, all of that gets tallied and tabulated and put into a magical black box that spits out a rank and rating system. And at the end of the whole event, we will have a playoffs that will go through and we'll invite the top 6 teams that show up on this leaderboard. So in order to facilitate that, we created 3 different ladders, each spaced 8 hours apart, so that way, regardless of where you are in the world, there is at least something at a reasonable time for you to play in. So you can sign up for one bracket that happens to be in your evening, there's another one that will be in your morning, and there's one where you should probably be asleep. And that's interspersed between EU, NA, and Australia, Japan. So that way, teams around the globe can essentially find something to play in at any given point. And because the ladders are essentially vehicles for matches, you can hop into one, you can hop into 2. If you hate sleeping, you can hop into all 3. All that really matters is that you find and play matches. And similarly, because we don't really mind where the matches are coming from, we are coordinating with other events so that way their matches also count into our system as well. So that's part of where, in addition to our events counting towards Grand Prix points,
Grand Prix
events count towards our event as well. So we have this nice symbiotic relationship. So all the more reason to sign up for GSM Grand Prix, because if
I hope you're good with Microsoft Excel.
Oh, it's even better. It's
He told me about this like super secret like algorithm. Like, yeah, there's all kinds of stuff going on back there.
I'm not surprised.
Is Bleck about to be Twitter? It's like the
trademark
algorithm.
Reasons, we will call it, I can't believe it's not Trusco. So we have that running behind the scenes, and what loaded into that data was we essentially used all the data that we had available to us, which was all Inkteam events for the last 2 years. So we essentially took every match, every game, every set of every player, loaded that into the system, which accounted for just shy of 30,000 matches being loaded in to calculate everyone's base score before turning on the league for the first ladder matches. So that way, we already have placements essentially for all the teams through. We have very strong determination, so that way, if you beat a fairly well-placed team, your score will skyrocket up in those leader rankings. So it's very quick and easy in order to get in, provided you can, beat those teams. So, as stated, we are going to be working with GSM Grand Prix. We have a couple of other events lined up that we'll hear about more shortly. And we also threw an ad hoc EU Winter Snowflake during the same time of the NA Open for... They wanted a double elimination bracket at EU-friendly times. Here's the double elimination bracket at EU-friendly times. And if anyone else wants a similar bracket set up, shoot me a DM. Oh, I don't mind.
I'm gonna end up
it's not hard to make a Battlefied page.
It's really not. It's really simple. And especially if there's not any of the overhead, such as match disputes are fairly easy to do on the go. So it's something that for this particular event, I wasn't really near my computer. I did most of the event from my phone as I went about the house doing the things I had to do on a Saturday morning. So I was able to TO for ad hoc as it went on through the day. Essentially just, it ran itself fairly easily. That may be in part from the amount of teams showed up. I imagine that more teams that would enter be a little bit more tedious, but for the most part, a lot of the automation that we put in and essentially turned on those rules did their job. So
Nice.
if others are willing to be fairly unsupervised in their events, I have zero qualms in creating more fairly unsupervised events for them to play in.
How many teams did you have?
We had 10 teams sign up, and I think about 4 actually showed.
Well, 4 teams just got some easy Grand Prix points.
Yeah.
Exactly. I look at this like, all right.
Yeah.
So, may have more of those, maybe not. We'll see.
I think maybe if you don't run them at the same day as NA Winter Open.
Fair, it was very much targeting not North American players.
Yeah,
True.
yeah.
Especially
yeah.
given that it started at 8 a.m. my time, which is 6 a.m. Pacific time, in which they already get grumpy when you try to throw anything at 8 a.m. their time. So wouldn't have had a large showing from.
It would have been a
that
great
particular
warm up
faction
for them.
regardless.
I don't know why that didn't work.
Yeah, I don't know, because it was
Mm.
definitely done before the NA Open kicked off.
I kind of wanted to play in it because I wasn't able to play in the open like at all, but I was able to like get up early, and it's like, oh man, maybe I can just be like a +1 for a random team and then like quit halfway through and go do stuff, but it ended up not happening.
I mean,
Who
it's
won?
kind of the beauty of that thing. You can just like, go and then you know what, I'm done, and then just leave.
Yeah. Yeah.
Probably not preferred, but yeah, you can totally do it.
I mean, like it's a tournament bracket that exists. People that want to play through it can play through it, and it's not so high prestige that like you know what I need to go, walk my cat.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, it's not that big a deal if you decide to do that. It's kind of like the same thing as like the ladder system, where it's like it's making its own matches, and you don't have to play the whole time. I kind of like the idea of the low pressure stuff like that.
Yeah, and that's what it's all about from our side. We essentially are recruiting other TOs to do the real heavy lifting for most of our event, while we have the nice low pressure stuff that's just there as filler, which I guess is another thing to touch on between our two events. Is it's the exact same map pool between them. So
Oh, you went with the exact
For what-
same? I thought you guys changed like one thing, but okay, I'll take it.
I took the exact copy that you gave me, so if you changed one thing after you gave it to me, then
Then guess what's changed?
then guess what's different.
No, I think that means they're the same.
Yeah. So all the more incentive to go hop in and play on it, because it's basically, if you're going to scrim another team, just try to force the system to give you a free scrim, or because of the level of I just want you to play matches. If you want to set up a scrim and have it exist in Battlefight, let me know and I'll do it. Sure, I don't mind. More free points.
Wow. So you could really
Cool.
grind for those points if you want to do that. That's
Yeah.
that's where
Yeah.
you start getting like a ridiculous amount of DMs though.
It's fine. I already get a ridiculous amount of DMs.
Guess that's true too. So something I wanted to ask is, what made you guys choose top 6 for your little invitational final?
So this is complicated, and I was really hoping to have a nice video to showcase exactly how the playoffs function, because it's a little bit different from how normal top cuts operate. It's essentially a mixture between a single elimination bracket and a double elimination bracket, in which it takes the good qualities of both. So at the beginning and of day 1, essentially the bottom 4 teams will play against each other in a single elimination fashion, and the top 2 will operate in a double elimination fashion. So the first seed and the second seed will play against each other, and that just determines where they sit in the next bracket. So the winner of those 2 seeds will be immediately into the grand finals, and the second one will then have to play against the winners of the other 4 teams after they've come through a single elimination to then guarantee that they go through. So as the team that loses against first and second, you still have a second opportunity to still win the whole thing. Whereas if you are sitting in the 5th or 6th seed, things aren't looking hot for you, but you can still take it. Let's see. I actually have the full match breakdown here in 1 second. All right. So essentially, the way the playoffs would work is the 3rd seed within the top 6 has the option of playing either the 5th or 6th seed. The 4th
Options
seed,
they choose, or it depends on
the
how
options
they
they
see.
choose. So whichever
Oh,
one they want.
interesting.
So 4th then gets to play whoever is remaining of 5th or 6th. So those 2 matches then occur, and then at the end of that
2
day will
teams.
be the 1st and 2nd place seeds having their match. So our whole day 1 is essentially 3rd versus say 5th, and 4th versus 5th, and then 1st versus 2nd. That caps off our day. The second day will then be the winners of those first 2 matches playing off to each other. Then the winner of that match playing the loser of the first versus second match, and then finally the grand final.
So
Being
you found
first
a
or
way
second
to-
is a huge plus for that final.
Yes,
Yeah.
there is a dramatic benefit in being the first or second seed.
but it also shaves off half of the 6 teams day one in a
Yep.
way that like normal elimination brackets couldn't really.
Well,
map
not
that
even
well.
half. It's only 2 are actually out, right? Because you're playing
What was that?
only 2 teams that are out on day 1, right? Or you?
Yep.
No,
Okay.
wait.
2 teams are out day one,
Fifth
and then
and sixth seed would be knocked out day one.
potentially, yeah.
Well,
Or
in the-
statistically,
Well,
yes.
yeah, statistically, yeah. Yeah.
Wait, it's not 3 teams getting knocked out day one because you have those 4 teams in single elim and then there's 1 left, and then he'll go on the day 2 to fight 2, and then that fights 1, right? Did I get
They're
that
doing
right?
3 matches day 2. I think is what he said.
Three matches in both day one and day 2.
So the match to determine who plays that second seed, and then second versus them, and then
Gotcha.
finals.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah.
And this is all based on a format that was, I'm not sure if they're necessarily the ones that created it, but they're definitely the ones we took it from. Was the League of Legends European
I was expecting
Cup, I think?
some stupid random like this is how they play croquet in
No,
in like Lithuania.
We lifted the exact same format from another esports tournament that had a lot of success. The only real difference is that their regular season was round robin, and we'd be lynched if we tried that. So we went with the ladder. to
You want
essentially
to round
determine the
robin
same
every
thing.
single team in the Splatoon community?
Oh God.
We'll
Good
get
lord.
done in like
Yeah.
2020 or 2023 and finally
Speaking
finish it.
about- Speaking about the opposite of just double elim.
It's like the Gigantamax form of InkerSync.
That's where someone's supposed to step in and be like, "But that's what Ludi is." And then he's-
It's
or
not even
something.
close to what Ludi is.
I know it's not.
Well, I mean,
Similar though.
it sounds like it's going to be a lot of fun. I think if I can get mushy for a second, I think my favorite thing about it is how the orgs are working together. I loved working on the crown because we were able to
Mhm.
come together with EGTV, and I love working on this with you guys because we were able to come together with InkTV. And I think that to me is like one of the most important parts and something that I really value in the whole process. So
I
thank
also
you.
think that that TOs working together more has a lot to benefit for the scene because something that we talked about earlier was like one of the goals of the Grand Prix, or at least this Grand Prix, is to involve all levels of play in the community, and that is way easier to do if a TO like GSM is partnering or at least working with in some capacity other TOs that kind of service like lower levels of the community, because not only are you like getting the word out and stuff like that, but like when your events directly feed in to the GSM event and those matches actually get streamed and stuff like that, it creates more incentive and more structure for lower level teams to actually like work towards something and like move towards something and actually have like a flow of players kind of like across that gradient, and like not necessarily like it's not like the higher level TO, I get the higher level players TO is like kind of taking players. It's more that just like that climb being there, it gives players an incentive to move up, and then new players have an incentive to join in on it.
Yeah.
Like when you have like when I did like the speed ladder, the goal was to try to draw new players in to kind of get involved with that climb. But if that climb's not there, that kind of doesn't make sense. But now that we're doing stuff like this, where there actually is that climb, you kind of have that system of like feeding players kind of up the hill. And so, yeah, it really wouldn't be possible if there weren't multiple organizations working with each other to kind of provide that connection between groups of players.
I think that's a really good analogy, that climbing like up the hill concept for growth in your teams. And I think that's something that a lot of people tend to sort of let go as a team. Sometimes they just get stagnant and they feel like, oh, there's nothing else to do. So you're absolutely right, Hitzel. I think there are a lot of opportunities for it. So one of the things you touched upon, or you mentioned there, that I wanted to touch upon was working with organizers from like lower level tournaments.
Mhm.
And I want to bring up like SAC for a second because they're kicking off this weekend too, and that's going to be huge. I'm commentating Friday night. I'm really excited to. But the reason SAC is not involved in what we're doing points wise is because it's a limited
not open.
entry. Yeah. So and for anyone who's wondering and is like, hey, why isn't SAC invited to participate? That's purely the only reason. Because it makes it kind of unfair for the point system if only certain teams can
Mhm.
qualify based on playing in that event.
Yeah.
So and I think that was a really valid point that was brought up when we were discussing
Yeah,
like
we tried to think of ways to incorporate it. Like we brainstormed a bit.
It was gonna
and
get really complicated really quick.
Yeah, it got too much. Like it would be nice if like schedules just happened to work out, so like SAC finals could kind of happen at the same time. So like stream wise, we can incorporate that. But the way that things just happen to play out, it was just kind of incompatible this time around. Maybe in the
Yeah.
future, if the Grand Prix, like if this format gets really well accepted and established, we can kind of plan a little bit more ahead as far as coordinating what that type of event goes. But I mean, I think that they're in good shape anyway. I think that
Yeah.
SAC has done a pretty good job at like not competing with Ludi, but like certain things like I talked about with Speed Ladder, like obviously Ludi and like SAC are doing a really good job of kind of reaching out a little bit beyond the normal community like bounds to like these lower level teams and pulling them in. So I think they're in good shape even if they can't like participate in this way.
I completely agree. Like the changes that have been coming to SAC that are everything is like just really growing, and I think that it's fantastic what's been happening. So it's going to be a really fun one to watch. I don't really have a good segue into our next topic because I was kind of planning to segue off of something else, but I jumped in with SAC. So I'm just going to throw it out there. And I am happy to discuss what we don't want to discuss. Grab your popcorn, grab your tea. Let's talk about community versus TOs for a second. And
Bleck's like,
I know.
So
Yeah.
some background knowledge.
So,
There
well, I think before we get there, I want to say I don't consider myself a TO. I consider myself a person who helps with tournament things. I don't consider myself a player. I consider myself a community member. And I think all TOs, we all share that concept of we're community members too. And we're doing what we're doing because we want everyone to feel excited about things that are going on in our community. And it's not that anyone ever as a TO has said, I'm gonna make this thing because I know people don't like it, and I'm gonna mess this up because
Well,
previously 72 hours ago, I don't know if that would have been a statement, but I mean, I'm just saying we're not out to like cause drama
usually
and
not
to
out.
make people unhappy with things.
Well, before we get too far, like let's kind of just explain what happened because I don't know that everybody even knows what's going on.
Yeah.
The general thing is like InkTV, like they teased their Splatoon World League, and when they announced it, like the initial reaction was, from a couple of top players was like, well, why isn't this just a normal major? And like that's not trying to be rude about it. It's kind of just me summarizing the thought process. But
It's
You can watch
fairly
Prodigy's
accurate, though.
video on the drama if you want more.
it kind of
detail.
sparked this reaction from the TOs. Is like, you know what? If you're like we're creating this, we worked on this for months. It's just like it just seems like weird to see all this negativity, and they like a lot of people saw that response as more negative than it needed to be, and then it just kind of created this like this argument between the two groups of people. Where
A
it's like,
debate on Twitter broke out.
yeah, and I mean, as per usual,
Pandemonium in
Splatoon
the
Twitter,
streets.
it snowballed out of control because it was like people were being angry for other people, and then it just was like people seeing some tweets but not like the full context, so like they're reacting to pieces of it. Like when I responded to it on Twitter, but that was I had only at that point seen the Snowflake tournament, and I was like, I can't believe they're doing this. Like, and I just kind of like put my thoughts out. I didn't know this. Like, I didn't know anything about the Sendu tweets. I didn't know about any of the other reactions. I just saw people complaining about Splatoon World League, and then I saw your response, and I was like, oh shit, like, that's sassy. But yeah, so that's kind of the background. One of the biggest reasons for bringing on you, Bleck, was I kind of just wanted to hear your thoughts about it. Like how does Ink TV feel right now, and how do you feel as Bleck?
Sure. So before digging into that, I do want to change a bit of the narrative a little bit. I know the topic was brought on as TOs versus players, or versus the community, or versus etc. I don't think it's a versus situation. I think this is largely a gross misunderstanding between how TOs perceive their position in the community versus how players perceive TOs' position in the community. And I certainly can't speak for other organizations, but I feel like their feelings probably don't stray too far away from mine, in that TOs see themselves as volunteers and players see them as civil servants, where they are there to perform a duty for the community. And there's a certain level of expectation that's put on top of that. And because clearly from the TO's perspective, I'm not seeing certain responsibilities as obligations, I'm seeing them as opportunities to do something, where it's not necessarily an obligation for me to do it, it's just something I want to do because I want to do it. And that, I think, stems a lot more of the general friction that we've seen, both recently and for years past. That breakdown happen in communication between what players expect and what TOs expect, and that not being a super clear and fine line to it. So with that kind of painting the background, when you come at a project that, like DJ said, has been something you're stewing over and working towards for a long time, it's in part the reason why there haven't been a lot of events coming out of Ink TV recently, is because a lot of energy has been put into this project. So having a lot of that energy and commitment put into something to present as essentially a gift, and to be told that your gift is wrong, especially when that's been kind of the general reception to many of other things that you've made in the past, which it's one thing to present a gift and no one wants it. It's another thing to get a gift and someone to ask for something different. And that has a very different connotation when you're the one creating it versus being asked to create something. That discrepancy between a volunteer and a servant, or civil servant, not quite servant. So
Bleck the Butler.
When things Bleck Butler, yes.
Bleckler.
What was even the point of that? It doesn't even make sense.
I don't know. We'll just get the Photoshop.
So and then with that, in particular for this event, with the context of what I already said previously of setting the stage for what the Splatoon World League is, in which the ladder's there as a vehicle for matches. It's not anything special. We are already reaching out to other organizers to essentially have their events count, so that way there's incentive to go play in other events, because we don't either have the ability or the capacity in which to run those particular events, especially given, as was mentioned early on into the stream, January is stacked in terms of events. There's not a lot of wiggle room, so essentially if we want to do something for the community, we have to step on someone else's toes in order to do so. So we have that combating as well with a lot of this. So when presented with, here's the thing that we've worked on, please enjoy it, and the response back is, why can't it just be double elimination? Fine. here's double elimination. With the double elimination, the best of 3, which we don't like running, and the only caveat is that it essentially follows the exact same format as all the other Splatoon World League events, in which there's going to be very limited access to TOs. And that's largely because of staffing issues and getting people and bodies present and available. Like, we say that it's 8-hour spread. Clearly, at 3 a.m. my time, I'm not waking up to solve a dispute because of some match. That's going to wait till morning. And especially because a lot of it's set in data, so it's easy to alter that data after the fact. Play the matches, get the scores, make sure everything is keen and ready before we actually enter in the data, because only the points matter, not necessarily everything else on the scoreboard. So, that is where we ended with, and as was mentioned, we stacked it up with sassiness, because ultimately, after so many instances, it's just done with it. Just here. There you go. Have fun.
I also think people
Whatever.
kind of forgot you guys have always been sassy. I think that was just
Yeah.
the sassiest you've ever been, but it like wasn't totally out of character, so I don't know why people reacted so quickly. But I thought it was funny.
Yeah.
I thought it
I
was
thought
just
it was
fun.
funny.
I think
Again,
the
it gets
whole
back to that expectation of the civil servant versus the volunteer. Clearly, we've been always volunteers, and we just do whatever the heck we want at any given point. But there's an expectation that because we've gotten to the point of both our outreach, our production, whatever have you, that there's a certain level of expectation that, especially with Ink TV, that they need to run majors. They need to do X. They need to do Y. And those needs that have been hoisted upon us don't necessarily align with what we feel that we need to be.
I think that another factor like that directly relates to that is it is kind of like we were talking about it a little bit earlier, but like the community as a whole has been like this drought of tournaments. And like the same kind of feedback happened when the crown happened, where a lot of people were upset that like, oh, this is like this gimmick thing, and like the roster restrictions, and like the format's weird. Like there were like Crack in Paradise, like they didn't I forget exactly what their situation was, but like they technically didn't lose any sets. They only tied in one, yet they didn't get in the grand finals. And like
They tied
there
in
was like
two. But
they
yeah,
tied, gotcha. Something like that. I forget exactly the details. Jazz hands, but basically like there was a lot of negative feedback to the crown, and then I think that there was also some negative feedback that kind of it got overshadowed by like some more kind of like upsetting reactions to, but like the when that all girls tournament was announced, like there was other stuff going on that was more that drew the attention of people paying attention more than those kind of complaints. But I think people were also like there was that kind of feeling like when like EGTV, now they announced something and it's also not like the major that we've been asking for months, and then like I guess it's like you guys just bad timing, like third strike you're out kind of thing. Like now Ink TV announces something and they're not doing like the thing either. And I think I don't think it was necessarily that you guys like built up like some sort of like history that people are knocking at, or that you guys are necessarily like more egregious offenders of whatever it is that these people think they're getting offended by. I think that it was also kind of the timing of the whole thing, and the fact that like the community has been kind of demanding this a kind of return to norms for a bit. I think that really kind of played into why there was so much more negative feedback than probably warranted. Because like, and this is not the first time this has happened in the community, because I think that for a competitive game like Splatoon, there's kind of like you guys are familiar with that, like that hierarchy of needs for like your personal life, where it's like you need like food and shelter and blah 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 blah, and like enlightenment's at the top. I think competitive communities have like a similar setup where like first you need to be able to just like get on and play the game, play with other people. And then the step above that, you need to be able to play with other people that also want to play competitive, right? And then there needs to be like actual
Reasons.
competitions that matter, right? And then above that, you start having things like prize money, and this kind of pyramid goes up. And we've had problems in this community before. Like for example, there's been issues of people being unable to play with each other because when like +1 and a bunch of other like kind of changes to the way that like scrims in the community were set up started happening, you saw like a lot of groups of players kind of being cut off from that ability to practice with each other, and that had tons of problems. Like it doesn't seem like a big deal now because we've mostly resolved that, and there's much more of a flow of practicing between teams, different levels of play, and being able to like climb up that kind of community like hierarchy. But back in the day when that wasn't present, man, like that was like huge drama. Like if you can remember, like all like I can't find scrims, and like top players are horrible because they're all on +1. Like that kind of stuff is kind of forgotten now, but that was a problem. And I think like the negative feedback that you guys are getting for this stems from similar kind of like there's like a rung in that hierarchy of needs ladder that's missing, and people are kind of reacting negatively to it. And I think that it hasn't been as clearly and loudly communicated as maybe it should have, because I think a lot of people don't really, aside from just saying like this isn't double limb, what's wrong with that, they don't really know how to communicate that, because this is kind of like a of the masses kind of problem and not like an individual's person problem. And I think just unfortunately you guys were like, hey guys, we're gonna like, you know, like that gif where like the guy walks into the room with pizza and everything's on fire kind of thing. Like you guys are you're the dude, the World League is the pizza and the fire is everyone else's problem, and you just happen to just walk into a room that was on fire.
So kind of a sidebar, do you think the reaction would have happened like it did if we had announced Grand Prix 3 before World League?
I actually think it would have been a lot less negative, because I think if everyone just got into their head, okay, cool, like a return to like norms, and then like something cool happened afterwards, I think it would have like, I mean, I'm sure that some people would have still said whatever they were going to say. Like I'm not saying that would have fixed it, but I definitely, like, if we could rewind the clock and like announce those in opposite order and like actually give the Grand Prix announcement time to marinate in everyone's like awareness, I think that there would be a pretty big difference in like a noticeable difference in like the reaction to the.
I'm
to the
sorry.
So you
That's
can
okay.
blame us,
Blame
Bleck.
Hitzel.
Yeah.
No, I just
This is
exclusively
all
blame
hindsight.
Hitzel.
Great here. I think you make a good point, though. I think something to consider as a player also is, I really like, Bleck, what you said about us considering ourselves volunteers, right? And as a volunteer, we want to do things that bring interest to us, especially when we're volunteers that aren't getting paid for something. So, you know, you want to do something that's fun for ourselves and exciting to look at. And these new formats that we've been coming up with are those things. So, yeah, I mean, players, maybe they want something that's similar to norm for what they are used to. But on our organizational side, sometimes that can get a little boring. So, we want to try
Yeah.
new things too. And it's very difficult. Like you mentioned, staffing is such a huge thing. There are so many TOs who have life has come up and they are not around as much as they used to be. And yeah, there are new TOs coming in, and a lot of these new TOs are really good and they're very quick learners. They're ready to jump in and figure things out. But to put a huge tournament like what the players are looking for in that scenario is a lot to ask of a TO who's only been doing it for 3 or 4 months. So I think, you know, it's all a conglomerate of all these things that if players are like, well, why aren't we getting what we want? Well, I don't want to be a brat and be like, well, figure it out, do it yourself. You to enjoy our events, but if you keep a little bit of an open mind, maybe you'll have a better time with it. So I think that kind of is a little bit to it also, that to me, I think these are going to be really fun. And I really like that there's a lot of things going on that's like uh, a lot of things going on that are, you know, new, interesting, exciting. And the fact that we're not streaming it all makes the fact that we're streaming finals things really exciting. And those are the moments that you're like gonna tune in and you're gonna want to see what's going on. And plenty of players are gonna be streaming their perspectives of them playing in the event. So it's not like people can't watch that. this gives a great opportunity to go out and find your favorite team and see who from that team is streaming. You want to watch somebody play, find their Twitch, figure out where they're gives you another opportunity to see who can create content that you enjoy as a viewer as well. Content with all the spaces in between it.
My internet's having a
Spaced
little
out.
like random dropout thing going on right now, so
Okay.
hopefully this is all getting caught by the stream, because it's just like a
Can
second
you
of just like
understand me.
what is happening is like it freezes for a second, and then it's like Melissa's last two sentences just go really, really fast, and then it comes back. Yeah, so we'll see.
Yeah.
Something that I think you two, I don't know where actually you're placed, there, here, whatever. Something also kind of ties into what both of you two were saying, is that in a perfect world where like TOs have a lot more time on their hands, they can kind of provide like the standard thing that is like expected, and then also do the cool creative thing. Like you kind of have this this balance of the art and the business. But then when you have the situations where like Bleck is talking about, where it's like we don't really have the manpower, like people are going to school, they have jobs, like we can't just do everything all the time. Then we have to start deciding, like, are we going to do the stuff that makes us happy, or like the kind of the more like standard stuff that we don't like as much, but we are able to do in the past because we were kind of able to perform all jobs. It's like once you start having that pressure of being unable to do it all, then you start having these situations as well where it's like, well, we want to still enjoy what we're doing, so we're just going to do the part that we enjoy. And then
That's something that gets lost on a lot of people. Like running a tournament doesn't really take all that much, like just in a vacuum. Like, I'm just gonna run a double limb tournament, like that's all I'm doing. Like that's like 1 to 2 TOs, they spend their whole day doing it, but it's not that hard to make that
already
happen.
a little bit of a lot.
It's like it's possible if you have like a staff. Like GSM, we have what 7 or 8 people on our staff, and like if we were going to run something every other week, like that wouldn't be that hard to do. But the problem is there's a like with at least with us and Ink TV and EGTV, like there's this expectation to also bring like a level of prestige with that, and that requires stream graphics, like hype, like content, and commentators. Like coordinating that stuff on top of running the tournament is where it gets insane to actually like feasibly happen, let alone making it happen on something consistent. So like it's always going to be really hard to do. Like someone like Sendu, he runs tournaments a lot. He runs a simple stream when he does do it, and when he can do it, and those are great. But when somebody's like, or I want like Ink TV tournament, like if we ran something like that, like if us or Ink TV did, like there would be flame, because we're not like like what are they even doing? It's like barely even anything. Like this is not what I come here to see. You know what I mean? So there's expectations behind everything we do, and we have to like every time we try and do something, we have to proceed with that in the back of our heads. Where if we don't put enough effort into this, people either won't care or will flame us for it.
So it's almost like oh sorry.
And I was just going to add, we get penalized because our next event, people aren't going to want to show up because of what they saw last time.
It's almost as if Splatoon tournaments over the past almost 5 years have, or majors at least, have almost like experienced power creep, where it's like, we've slowly improved on what the Splatoon major is over time, and now look, I'm underwater. Like eventually it comes to a point where unable to keep up with the bar that kept being raised, you start having to put in amounts of work that are beyond just like I'm just going to volunteer and help run these tournaments because I care about this game, I care about this community, and like the tournaments are something that has to happen, and I'm down, let's do it. And eventually it becomes like, what did I sign up for? And it's just going to keep raising. So I mean, it's a difficult situation to address, because lowering the bar is a hard thing to do. People will get like disappointed and upset and stuff like that, but there eventually will become a point where it's like we can provide these big tournaments and these things that matter to make the community run, but like we can't maybe we can't necessarily demand so much from these individual TOs to. I don't know. It's a tricky.
It's a fine line that like I don't think anybody's really learned to walk yet, and
Yeah.
like
And
I
you
know
can't
we
make
haven't.
everyone yeah. And you can't make everyone happy either. Like at the end of the day, there are always going to be people who are really disappointed with what we decide to do. And maybe the majority are really excited about it. But that 20%, maybe we've lost them from coming back to something else. So I think you have to figure out what your goals are and determine what it's marketing in a way. Determine your target audience, figure out how do you connect with them, how do you achieve what they want, and then figure out how you can do it. So, it's tough. I think the most disappointing part to me is watching the drama get out of hand and frankly mean, because I think that is really the undeserving part. Nobody deserves to be talked down to on the internet or in real life, obviously, given, but
And
like,
the mean stuff mostly comes from people just being mad for other people. Like that's
yeah,
like the Splatoon Twitter drama
Twitter.
stuff. Like anybody who had
Yeah.
actual feedback, they weren't saying it in a mean way. It's just
right.
we put something out, we work for months, and then the first thing you see is, oh, why not double limb? I'm just like, well, screw you. Like, that would be my initial reaction. I don't know what
Right.
Bleck thought when he saw it, but
About the same. Like I said, it was definitely something that got shared around a lot. Is that Ink TV's mad? We were never mad. Exasperated, definitely. We were definitely fed up with some shit.
You had
But-
a reason to be, though. I mean,
And it kind of goes back to the same thing that Twitter is not the place for feedback. That will never be successful, and everyone who is trying, even if it's just kind of this is my blanket opinion and I'm putting it out there, which is exactly what Twitter is for, is terrible in the context of actually giving constructive feedback, because it is effectively the exact same as subtweeting, and there's no good subtweet. That's just not how it works. And I assure you that if any individual came up to me and asked, could you please run a double elimination tournament, the answer would either be, we can't because we don't have the resources, and then they come away with, oh, I understand why they are not doing this now. Great. Or situations like what we did on Saturday is like, yeah, we don't have the staff for it, but we can put this up for you, and if you guys are adults about it, you can still have all the fun and all the competition you want with very light supervision on it. And if that's cool with you, it's cool with me. But that's not how it's given. It's not how it's taken. It's a mess. So, strongest advice for everyone listening: talk to the TOs. Don't talk about the TOs.
like,
that's life advice.
yeah,
Talk to
I mean,
the person.
talk to their feedback channels. I mean, almost every TO I know is like in the past responded to me even before I was a TO. If I was like, hey, you know what, this is like a really dumb idea, they've either responded and changed things, or they've told me why they wouldn't do it that way. Like way back in Inker Sync 1, the TOs of that tournament, I like, as soon as I saw the rule set, I DM'd them and I was like, oh my god, don't do this. Like, this is going to take 3 months to actually like finish, and like you shouldn't do it this way. And they were like, you know what, this is just a test run, we need to do it this way. And I was like, you know what, all right. And it happened the way I predicted it, but it was, it was fair enough. Like, it did eventually end. It just required a DQ to happen, and well, 2 DQs, I guess. But there was a back and forth there. Like I had like an hour-long conversation with, what was it, Roy, I think was the guy's name.
That's so long
I
ago.
remember.
I think it was
Pre-me.
Roy.
I just
But-
like linking the
Many
bracket
years
every
back.
once in a while to see who lost to S&D.
But like every TO since then has talked, to me when I have feedback. And I mean, I know and any GSM staff will respond, or if they don't have an answer, they'll poke the right person. So
Yeah.
just talk to them. If they don't have like a feedback, like a designated feedback area, do that. We do like, I know I do general like research of like when we were first figuring out the crown format, like every once in a while my ping hits a like, hey, ask +1 if this is a good idea, and then
Plus
some
one
of them would.
members, now you know why I just randomly asked this.
Once it got to a point where it was
The
like,
secret's out.
basically he did this first suggestion, and then everybody was like, heck no, and then we changed it a little bit, and then it was like 50-50, and we're like, all right, that's probably good enough, and then we like did that as what it was. But anyway, like it's like nothing is done without any thought whatsoever.
Yeah.
And if you have feedback on it, like there's ways to get it to us. Like Twitter, sometimes we see it, sometimes we don't. It's Twitter.
Yeah.
That's kind of the way it works. So.
And like coming from my point of view, which is I think a very unique point of view into competitive Splatoon, because I credit Bleck you bringing me into the community, to be honest. Did you say you're sorry?
Yes. That's me being facetious. Continue.
Yeah, it's okay. But I mean, I have learned so much by working with GSM and by listening in on Ink TV stuff. And that's how I learn in general. I'm a kinesthetic learner. I learn through doing things. So every time I do something and I get feedback on it, I incorporate it directly into the next thing I do. That's just how I am and who I am as a person. But one of the things that's most gratifying to me, speaking to DJ's point about just DM a TO about something, I've learned so much just in the past couple of months working on events with DJ, because he has this whole wealth of knowledge that I don't. And it's wonderful to me to be able to say, hey, why aren't we doing this? And he's like, oh, because of this. And I was like, oh, duh. Yeah, that didn't even occur to me. And I think it's happened kind of vice versa in other things too, where he's like, well, how about this? And I'm like, yeah, but then this happens. Oh, yeah, I didn't think of that. So it's a great learning opportunity as a player. Just if you have a question about something, don't be afraid to DM a TO. Don't be afraid to DM an organizer. DM me. My DMs are always open. I'll find who to talk to and I'll figure it out. And I'll try to get you an answer as quickly as I can about what your question is. But people are just, we want to help the community grow. And that's like the most basic thing. We want to put on cool shit. We want to do things that make us happy, and we want to help the community feel like they have a place here as a player, as a viewer, as a member, as anybody, whoever it is. And this is also why we get artists involved with prizes, because we want them to feel involved too. Like you're not a player, but you do cool art. We'd love to give you money to make something for our winners. Like that's another way that you can involve people. And I think I'm rambling, but it's just really gratifying on that point. So don't be afraid to talk to us and say, this is what I want out of a tournament. And if you're like, hey, I want to play in a tournament like this, but I don't know how to make that work, then come to one of us. I'm sure we'll be like either A, no, we don't have the time.
Or this is how you could do it yourself.
Right. Or so-and-so might be great at that. Why don't you reach out and talk to them?
Speaking
and I know...
Did you get that? Never mind. Continue.
Oh.
I can't look at anything I got on Discord right now, because otherwise your cameras will get all messed up.
We'll expect a DM from someone.
Well, nah, I am always open to talk to people. I am the most uncool person ever, I promise you. So just, it's just really important to have that dialogue. And I totally think Twitter is probably the second worst place to do it, because I would say Facebook is the first worst, because that's just...
None of us even use Facebook.
No.
You're just talking to the void of
That's the Not even I use that.
I'm old and I don't use Facebook, so that's saying something right there. It just... You're not gonna get your feedback.
Black looks like he got offended by you saying that. Like, is it something about Facebook and old people? I don't know. I just saw this reaction in your eyes. It was like,
I'm used to being the oldest person, so I'm used to making that joke. But I might have messed up.
Yeah, no.
I think all of us are used to that, actually.
Yeah.
Well,
I think Bleck and I are similar aged.
I mean, I think
Close.
what you're saying is important though, Melissa, because I think it's like every like 5 months or so, someone basically makes a tweet saying what you were saying. Where it's like, don't be afraid to just like if someone's like a top player or a TO, like don't like be nervous. Don't think that like they won't talk to you, you can't talk to them. Just like we're people. Just if you got if you want to talk about something or you need like advice or whatever, just let us know. Kind of thing. I think the last person that made that tweet was Kiri, and it like got and it always gets like this huge like oh my gosh really kind of response, but like no, just like you can talk to
I mean, the thing
us.
that people like, you can't like. What's the worst case scenario? We
Don't
don't
reply.
we see it, but we don't respond. Like we still saw it, like almost
Yeah.
every time. Like at
Well,
least
the
that's in our
technically worst case
brains at that
scenario
point, you know.
is someone says something mean to you in a DM, but chances of them saying something mean to you in a DM and
Really
your
low.
other alternative is Twitter, it's gonna be a lot worse on Twitter.
The only time I'm
Yeah.
ever like,
That's-
gonna be mean to somebody in a DM is if they deserve it ahead of time. And there's like 3 people that I can name that I would respond with something mean, but they know who they are. So
Yeah. There's I don't think I've ever seen any kind of example of like a high profile member of the community getting like a DM from someone that was like a stupid question and then just like putting out publicly like, oh look at this idiot, look what he said. Like the only time that happens is if like someone makes like a really scrubby YouTube comment, and that's the opposite of DMing someone. So.
that stuff is like top players getting GG
Scrub
winky
quotes.
faces after losing
Yeah,
a solo
yeah.
queue. Like that stuff's stupid and you
Yep.
shouldn't do it. But I mean to Kyo and DMs because we love each other and that's just how we show our affection. That's me responding to chat, by the way, and for anybody who watches the vlog.
One other thing to touch on real quick, especially in regards to things like criticism and feedback. Of course, you're free to give it. Doesn't mean it has to be accepted. And Melissa, you touched on this a little bit. Let's say the loudest 20% want option A. Everyone else wants option B. Who do you piss off? The 20 or the 80? And those kinds of decisions happen all the time, and there's many cases where it's even a 50-50 split where, well, we're screwed because we can't make anyone happy and we have our numbers. Because like Melissa said, is the actions you take don't necessarily help or benefit future events. Sometimes they hurt it, and in a way that's very hard to recover from. So there's a lot of, especially for regular occurring events, a lot of that kind of damage control that goes into effect for trying to keep the most amount of people happy. And the most amount of people also includes TOs. And there's certain restrictions because there's definitely cases where, yeah, I could do X, but X is a lot harder than doing Y. And if I have the choice of doing X and being unable to run it as well as I want it, or do Y and I can run it, there's usually a clear benefit to going to Y with the cost of going to make some people unhappy.
And usually, like you said, like the loud 20%, the squeaky wheel gets the oil, right? We've learned this our whole lives. Anytime you go onto Yelp, if something is not great, you're going to see your bad reviews before you see the good reviews. And that's kind of what we're going to hear more of, is if there's a very loud percentage of people who are unhappy with something, they're going to be as loud as they can about that. And that perpetuates the situation. So it might be that the 80% is happy with option A, but the 20% has a lot more of a voice, maybe, and they are able to perpetuate that, and then their friends get involved, and et cetera, et cetera. But the rest of the 80% is like, I don't have an issue with this, like, but maybe they don't want to speak up that they don't have an issue with it. It just creates a different type of mentality.
If you're happy
When-
with something, there's no reason to go out and speak against it.
Yeah.
So
Or for
like,
it.
and that's something
Yeah,
I lose
for
sight of a lot when I do stuff. Like, for every single piece of negative feedback, there's probably 10 people that were happy with what happened. So it's like, remembering that is extremely hard as a TO, at least for me. And it's like when I go in and I see like 10 pieces of negative feedback, and then there's just like one person like the one or whatever who's like, yeah, I liked it, it was great. And then you're just like, well, everything sucks and I'm a
When
failure.
you said the one, did you mean the one or the one person?
I actually meant the one because he was one of the first people that I remember from one of our events that was like, this was actually really awesome. Like, there was this one little thing I didn't like, but everything else was awesome, and I hope you guys do more. And I was like, man, you know what? That means a lot, because at the time it was like, we were just, like, that was like, I think that was after the first Grand Prix
The Elite?
Yeah,
like, way
yeah.
back
Oh,
when.
right.
And, like, if anybody was around when that happened, that I was, like, in meltdown mode, because the stream was, like,
yeah.
not working, and the tournament took like half an hour to start, and it was just a nightmare. And then I saw like one piece of positive feedback afterward, and I was like,
I saw after that tournament, I think I cried for a good 20 minutes because that was my first big online thing that I had helped with, and we put so much into that. And then the feedback like was not good at all after that. And there were a lot of people who were like, the graphics sucked. And I'm just like, this is the first time I've done tournament graphics on my own without anybody saying, hey, this is what we need from this, and this is how it should look. And I'm like, yeah, okay, sure, you're right, they sucked. But I put a lot of energy into that, and I'm exhausted, so I'm going to be emotional about it for 20 minutes, and then I'll fix it for the next time. And that's what we did, and I think it's a much stronger stream and a much stronger presentation now. But it, getting that type of feedback definitely shakes you up. So that one like piece of, hey, this was really good, I really enjoyed myself, is lovely. Lovely. And if you feel like, if you're in that percentage of the people who are like, hey, I don't want to talk against other people who are saying negative things, DM your TO. Hey, this was lovely. We'd appreciate that. And we're not going to call you out and be like, oh my God, DJ messaged me and said that I did a good job. Like, so DJ gets all the hate. Like, that's not what we're about,
No, and I'll definitely say that if you want to make, regardless of the tournament or organization or what have you, if you want to see them do very rapid change in the direction you want, pick whatever part that you liked and don't say anything about the parts you didn't like. Just focus on the parts that you do like. And then every time they try something different, go, that one, I like that one too. And just only send positive feedback. You will very greatly see that change, because I'll tell you what, much like what DJ was saying, the amount of negative feedback drastically outweighs the positive. But if you flood a positive feedback, you're not going to see people go, well, after a lot of people told me on how great this part is, I'm going to not do that anymore.
Yeah.
Every tournament we do, we get compliments about the map list, and that's why that hasn't changed much since we started doing it. So,
yeah.
like,
compliment
that's
sandwiches.
an exact example of that. It's like, people like the way we do map lists, we're going to keep doing it that way.
Yeah. Compliment sandwiches are the best way to feed somebody unpleasant
Yeah,
anything.
it actually is.
Hey, I really liked the map list. I was really upset this tournament took 6 hours. I thought the stream looked great. That's a really easy way to put some feedback in perspective.
The negative sandwich, you just gotta.
Yep. Put some good stuff on the outside.
On the other side of that coin, though, I think something I kind of want to add to this whole thing is, I think one of the biggest problems comes from a lack of outward communication in these orgs. Like, we all talk to each other and we talk within our own org, but we like the outward public stuff, when we're not actively doing things, it's actually pretty bad from all of us. We actually just had a conversation about it right before this meeting with another person, and now we're like, you know what, like, we need to actually do this better. And I think that's something we, like, at least GSM, we realized, oh crap, we are not doing this well at all, and we need to do it better.
Yeah.
And I think if we're better about this outward communication, I think some of the initial reactions will change, because, like, it's not just about, oh, hey, you're doing not what I want. It's like, oh, you've been doing this whole time.
We haven't heard from you for 5 months, and you're what?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I don't know how long the Grand Prix has been in the works, but the Splatoon World League has been an 18-month-long project.
I remember
That's a lot of months.
while ago when you guys were like, hey, we're doing a thing, and I was like, what is it? And you're like, can't talk about it yet. And I'm like,
Yeah, and a lot of that comes
And
from
then 2017 rolled around.
yeah, and a lot of that kind of comes from you can't really. It makes it real difficult, especially for that outward communication, for trying to set expectations that you're working on something, because that could have similar blowback of why is it taking so long, and then it finally comes out, and the response is, "That's it."
Yeah.
You've been doing this for 6 months, and that's what you give me? And the answer is, yeah. It took a long time, okay? Things are difficult.
It's like that I
But-
made this GIF and like yeah,
Yeah.
that's all I thought of right there.
Yeah, because I know that especially in both various TOs and certainly around the circles of friends that I have, I've been dropping hints about this project for a long time, and even demoed a lot of it early on in a BNS probably about a year ago. That here's a thing that we have, and kind of was testing the waters for a little bit, got somewhat good reactions from it, and it went through a lot more development cycles in order to get it to a place where both I felt it was fairly accurate, and in a position where, especially now, where it's not tournament dependent. Like it can take data from Solange, Battle 5, Smash GG. I'm working on tournament next to make it so that way, regardless of the platform that you're coming from, the data.
Have
can
we
be
even
consumed
played any
into it.
Splatoon tournaments on whatever that last option was?
The French scene plays a lot of tournaments on that.
It's always the French. It's cool they're asleep now, so I can rag on them.
Except for Kiver, because
Yeah.
he's just always awake somehow.
If Kiver responds in chat, I mean, I'll laugh. So
I mean, I'll laugh.
yeah, it'll be funny.
So yeah, that's kind of I think that pretty much summarizes how all of us feel on the situation.
It's at least the TO side's perspective with like,
Mhm.
you know, half
Yeah.
players with me and Hitzel, like we're like
Yeah.
50-50, but definitely a TO biased opinion on it. But hopefully
from-
that kind of makes things a little clearer for people out there.
Yeah. And from like the non-player side of the community that I mentioned, I don't really totally consider myself a TO all the time. That's not quite how I think of my involvement with what I do. And I definitely am, but that's just not how I think of it. I've definitely been on that side of things getting retweeted that are really negative about me, and like drama is best served just messaging the person you want to talk to about it, because honestly it doesn't make anyone feel better and it perpetuates everything. So I think I want to do closing remarks as this is my closing remark, and I want to hear from you guys that just reach out and talk to a human, and none of us are going to be mean to you on purpose.
I might be sassy, but I won't be mean.
I'll definitely be sassy
Same.
about certain things, but
But no, especially after the whole fire, there was a whole bunch of DMs that I had with various people who came in wanting to know WTF mate, and I had hour-long discussions with them of this is kind of the reasoning why we're in the position that we are, and kind of decisions that we have to make, and the whys, the not easy to see whys, and that's something that's real difficult to convey in Moss, because there's always someone new who has similar questions, and it's not like you can have a fact sheet just sitting out there of, well, since you're coming in here for some feedback, here's our link to our fact page. Please review in order to brief yourself up on all of the common problems people have with us and why we don't do certain things.
we need
After which,
a
please submit your
Wikipedia
forms.
page. We need a Wikipedia page that discusses the timeline of this is how this happened, this is why this did this is why we changed to this format.
We all need to
And,
make documentaries on every single thing we do so that there's like a behind the scenes look at the decision making process.
Mine would be real boring. You'd be looking at a lot of code.
Oh my god, do you know how much cursing would be in mine? So, any other closing remarks on this topic from you guys?
I kind of said my piece. Just the general, like, if you want feedback, Twitter's not the place, or you want to give feedback, Twitter's not the place, and
Just in general, Twitter's not the place.
yeah, Twitter's not the place. Private Discords are also not the place because we're not always in those.
And it eventually gets out.
I'm
No
not in
matter how
+1. I
private
don't
you
see
think
what
your
happens in
Discord is,
+1,
it gets
so
out.
it's hard for me
Honestly-
to know what people want in +1 other than what the people
What
that
I
I am
say,
friends
right?
with that say. Like Hitzel's like my main look into what happens in +1. So
There's some good feedback. +1 and the leaders thereof. Create a private channel for TOs and invite all the TOs into it, so that way there's direct communication in the +1 server directly to the TOs.
at Sendu, somebody clip that and at Sendu.
Send it to send out, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't make those kinds of decisions, so
Yeah, we don't need to see all the other memes and what have yous in +1. Make a channel, make a site where the players can talk directly to the TOs. I'm sure everyone will be happier when it's all said and done.
Just don't like Dr. Prodigy in there. I don't want to hear him. He complains to me enough. We're good.
I think we're ready to move on.
yeah.
Questions from chat. So we have one question. I'm gonna read it just because I read all the questions. Is Hitzel's beard for sale and how much? I think you saw that, Hitzel, but I figured I'd read it out loud.
Yeah,
just in case.
I like giggled at it.
Should we make shaving Hitzel a donation goal for Beacon?
No, no, I'm not okay with that one. Also,
Daddy has some money to spend.
Come on, Hitzel, you got to do it now. Come on.
No.
That's how we.
What would
That's
that goal be? What would that goal be? Just throw out a number.
that's how we
Hitzel.
make the
How much would
largest
you need
Splatoon prize pool in the histories of Splatoon.
How about we let Morgan set the goal, because she's the one that
fair.
she's the one I have
Yeah,
to turn
that's
around. It's
fair.
like, by the way, guess what I'm doing?
All right, I'll DM Morgan after this.
She'll cry. She'll actually cry. So will I, but that's not what'll influence you guys to back off. So, although to be honest, if this does leave my, can you even like donate a beard? I don't think you can. It's not. My beard isn't that long.
No, I just want to like shave
No,
you
you
on
can't.
stream. I would just
That's
take
also
some clippers and just go.
Well, you want to shave it and then
No.
take all the clippings and like paste it to a poster board and then bring that to Beacon and then just like hang it up on the wall somewhere.
If we didn't already destroy the fish heads, I would put it on one of those.
I'll look like
Oh,
look
those
like-
poor fish heads.
I'll look like Echo or Kiri or someone like that without a beard, and that won't be good.
When's the last time you've not had a beard?
High school?
No, I think like my sophomore year at college. So like 2010?
So like 10 years.
Yeah. Yeah, I haven't been babyface for 10 years.
What a time to start.
No!
Get that donation goal going.
Oh my god.
All right.
He's terrified because he knows this is gonna happen.
I'm just
I mean-
terrified.
If I ask Morgan nicely enough, she'll be down.
My brain hasn't
See,
even
I think the
processed.
other risk is Morgan coming in and like really lowballing the numbers, like $100.
That's what you need to be worried about.
Instantly.
We can let Morgan be the one to shave you too.
I've never seen you this stressed about anything.
Because it could happen.
Because it could happen.
It's starting to leave my control.
Oh my gosh.
Oh man.
These aren't bananas we're talking about. This is a different B word.
The beard.
Anyway, if that is that,
Oh,
that's
Gumba's
all
got a
all we
question.
gotta say. Oh, did I miss it? Ever get to the point of having Gamepedia page something similar?
We
Yes,
had one.
I would love that. We did have one.
We had one in Splat 1. And
still
I didn't
there.
even know who ran it. It was like
Yeah, that's the greatest mystery is no one knows who ran it.
yeah, no one knew whose that was. And like it was real so there I forget exactly what what wiki it was. Like it was one of like the original like Splat One wikis, and they had like this esports page. And for like the beginning of 2015, like they were like aggressively keeping track of like who made what prize money and like who was on what rosters. Like, and they have like there's just like all this like niche stats about people. Like there's like a cyberbullies thing on there, and there's like Squid Squad and all that stuff. And at one point they just stopped, and we never knew who it was. We like they paid a lot of attention to the scene, so like we know that like they were around, but it's just they just
My
vanished.
suspicion is that it's someone from the 4chan scene who I'm not sure associates with anyone else outside of 4chan anymore for Splatoon.
At Ant.
Because we had team members from that scene on Qt, and Qt had a bio page on said wiki. and not many
Qt's
teams had a bio
was-
page. It had data and stuff, and it had a fairly up-to-date roster information of things that, oh, you knew this person was here?
Did you ever
They
try
never
to do like
played.
the bait and switch kind of thing where like you were like okay, we think it's him, so we're gonna stage this thing that you're leaving the team, but we're not gonna we're gonna pretend that we announce it publicly, but not. And then if it changes, we knew it was you, motherfucker.
All I know is for like the first year and a half, I was the I was the player that had won the most money from Splatoon, and it was like less than $200 or something like that.
Yeah.
It was like such a weird stat to brag about.
But you had it, or have it.
But
Probably
definitely
has
don't have it
Do you
anymore.
Still have it.
It almost
On
paid
the-
for his
on the
trip to
official
Switzerland.
record. You have the most money won.
Oh my god.
Just because nothing else has been cataloged in years does not take away the fact that you are the highest earner as documented on the official Wikipedia site.
So Gamba, if you want to step in as the new version of this, is that what
Yeah,
you're
let's
asking?
add another thing to Ganba's plate because he doesn't
Yeah.
do enough already.
Seriously, amazing the amount of stuff that you do.
Yeah, it is kind of. Yeah, she didn't. No, I mean, yeah, I think you're right. I think for those who are like listening and not reading, she basically said Nine made some kind of comment how easy it is to kind of like look up stuff for other games, whereas like in Splatoon, it's like really hard to kind of figure out like what like the top players are. I mean, I guess you go to like Academy and be like, who has red name, but like that doesn't really account for much, especially since like most like there's a lot of
So
top
many
players
people
out
have
there.
that at this point.
Yeah, I think that the only really way to solve that problem is to create some kind of trend among TOs to make cataloging of like top eights or something like that important. It's like impossible for us to catalog too much because so many pickups, so many like teams that don't really give us their full rosters and stuff.
It's already hard enough
No,
to seed a
it's-
tournament.
Almost like
Yeah.
a leaderboard.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. I'm like, I think Bleck's magic box can take all this information and hold it all, and I think. Am I wrong?
No, I was just
I mean, at
remarking
least
on the
for
Bleck's magic
stat-wise.
box thing.
Bleck is literally the only one that can answer that question.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, it's set up to basically you just feed data into it, and it'll pump out stats at the other side. And right now I have it running nightly based on our ladders, and it's set up already to queue in GSM
nice.
stuff.
Are you gonna put lands in there like AKA G7?
I asked specifically if EGTV wanted that included, and was told no.
Oh, okay.
And that's the other part. Of
G7
it's
is
also
kind of
why-
like, I don't know, but we should make an exception to that. But
Yeah, and that's part of it as well, and a lot of why this hasn't exploded out to just consume all data possible is going out fairly individually to talk to other TOs and ask permission to use their data. I 100% can just take the data, but we ask permission here. We get consent. But yeah, it's set up to fully load in as much as what's wanted and necessary. The only small caveat is for things like challenge. The general trend and why people gravitate towards that as a tournament platform is that you don't have to enter roster information, which is one of the key components necessary for this to run. So, those particular tournaments, things like SMC, SAC,
Doesn't
few of the
Challenge
other
have the ability
events.
to make that a thing now, though?
it always had.
And just people don't
always
use
had
it,
that
right? Yeah.
Just no one uses it. I mean, it's the same way that you can set up teams in both Battlefield and Smash GG without anyone really being under it. You just essentially present it as a singular player, and it's a bunch of players, and they do their thing.
Is
that
the
doesn't really
challenge
work
thing
for-
like how Smash GG and Battlefy require all those members to sign up to the tournament as a group? Or can you do something where like I'm signing up and I have to fill in these 5 fields that say here are the players that are playing with us in subs if
No, it's kind of like Battlefy in the regards that you essentially create a team, and then you can assign as the captain of said team 2 events. But Challenge in particular, and I remember this from the ye old days back whenever we did have to actually include rosters on Challenge. It's tedious to manage and maintain that, especially from the captain's perspective, to make sure that your roster is up to date. It's obviously not an issue if your roster never changes, but for a lot of teams, that's not the case, especially in cases where there's subs. It can make that tricky and a bit tedious. But
it would be nice if the captain could just fill in a couple text areas that just say like, you know, who's playing with you. Type it in, type it in, type it in, type it in, enter, and then you don't have to like.
Yeah, and some events, I know some of the TOs for those who heavily use Challenge. You still have to submit a roster. They still check it, but it's more in the context of seeding more so than ensuring players.
Yeah. But now
there's reason. But a lot of what is set up, or a lot of the groundwork that's set up for that in particular is set so that way, if someone were to run an event without a roster listed, it can get loaded in, and then after the fact, load in a roster sheet based on that. So the opportunity still exists there. It's a lot more work on my end, so I'm not super eager to go after every single challenge event and load it into the system. But I could.
Well,
comes back to that time and resource thing. It's like, do I really want to spend an additional hour every time there's a new bracket to upload the roster sheet every single time? I don't have a good answer for that.
I think the good answer is no.
I think the best answer is delegate.
Who wants to do data entry?
There you go. Who wants to do it? Ask and ye shall receive. Somewhere, somebody likes that.
Maybe.
K-Bot loves that kind of stuff.
No, there's one of you nerds out there. Let's bring back Best Teammaker. He'll do it.
Oh my gosh, I haven't heard from him in forever.
It's like a joke, but it's not a joke. He'll do it. Maybe he'll just
that's
show
what
up
I was thinking too. That Gamba does do that a lot. But I mean, honestly, I think
we already had her say no in many more characters than 2, so I don't.
No, I'm not volunteering. I'm not volunteering her. No way.
Well, Gamba, you're signed up.
Sure. No.
It's all Melissa. You can thank.
No. I read what Lily wrote in chat, so there's that. But what I'm saying is, there's a lot of data out there. It would be awesome if there were some easy, succinct, clear, concise way to put it all into a machine and it just makes it pretty. But that's people, not a machine yet. So
yeah, if we had a machine where we could record like counterpick win rates for teams and all that stuff, like I would love that, because when I make map lists, like that's the kind of data I try and look at, and it takes me forever to get all that and be like, oh, nobody picked Albacore this time around. I guess I'm just gonna remove that from the list. And then the next tournament comes around, it's like, oh, that was my favorite map. Oh.
Well, you didn't pick it. So, I mean, yeah. So I think we covered it all.
We don't want to spawn a conversation about map lists, so we should probably stop.
No, we don't.
We can save that for next time.
Yeah.
Moray Towers, best map for life. Thank you guys all for being
I thought you learned. I thought you learned.
I did. Spot 1. I watched it. I saw it. I understand. I get it. But I still think it's really cool. And I have a lot of very personal attachments to that map that we're not going to go into. So, I have my reasons for loving it. And y'all can say it's terrible to play, and that's fine. I still love it. It's still my favorite. Always will be. You're not changing my mind. So
we have rancor for that map.
That being said, I think we're good, right? We'll sign off.
Yeah, I think we're good.
All right. So we will sign off. Special guest, Bleck, where can the lovely people find you? And yeah.
And where can the not lovely people
Find
find you so we
the
can redirect them
deepest and
somewhere else?
darkest cave in your general area. That's probably where I'm at. I can also be found on the Twitters that you're not supposed to use at BlackSwordD2, or you can just search InkTV and that'll probably find me as well. That may be easier to remember. Yeah.
And Hitzel?
You can find me on Twitter at Hitzel89, or just find me in the Academy, which is like where most of my interaction with the community goes from. Either me getting pinged or someone saying something that they shouldn't have, and then I get involved with the social chat for 30 minutes. But yeah.
And DJ.
At Little Sound DJ, my main shout out is #GoToBeacon.
Oh, yeah. #GoToBeacon. And you can find me, Acid Sunshine, double E on Twitter, single E on Twitch. And my main shout out is stay tuned for fun stuff. I'm so excited. This is like high anxiety, like the fastest excitement. I'm just really super excited about it. Everyone's probably gonna hear the announcement and be like, Melissa, why is this exciting? And I'm like, because I worked really hard.
Now I know how Bleck feels.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm waiting for it. I know it's gonna happen. I'm waiting for it, and I'm still gonna be really proud of it. So that's all that happens. That being said, thank you all so much for joining us today. It's been really fun to chat with you guys, and I hope that everyone enjoyed watching us, listening to us. If you're listening, not watching, and hanging out today. So we hope to see you again soon. Thanks for tuning in for GSM Live. Have a great night.
GG's, that was the NZAP.